Hello, Maria.
Hello.
How are
First
you
of all,
doing?
Brazil is in a very complicated situation right now, not only because of pandemic, but political situation, but we are here. Thank you for the invitation for the film and for making this possible.
Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. I saw your film and I was overwhelmed by the beauty of the film and its subject as well. I actually was quite fascinated first of all because I'm really sensitive to the color palette in your film as well. And there is a moment when the sisters actually are chatting with the dark green wall behind them and all the colors of their clothes as well. And the shots in your film also are mostly really still, and I really enjoyed the stillness in your aesthetic. Why did you decide to adopt this specific aesthetic for your film?
Well, for me, it's not the aesthetic. It's not something that we can put apart from the discourse or what we want to talk about. So it comes together, and I was pretty sure, first of all, as a desire, as a project, I didn't want to make a film that we were pretending that we are not seeing a film. So I wanted everybody to be conscious that we are on a film and we can feel things, although we know this is a film. So together with this, a desire to think about what we already made, what is our cinema history, and how we already represent histories and people and women, and how we can appropriate ourselves of this language and talk about aesthetically in a way that means more something to us, or for me as a woman making a film. So maybe that's why using the tradition of stillness, but putting different angles and perspectives and putting as interruptions. I mean, not to pretend that we are doing a voyeur work, but how they say, working as a voyageur, like working with this stillness in an active way.
Absolutely. And you are, if I'm not mistaken, also a poet, besides being a filmmaker. How does this affect your filmmaking and your directing? If it does, actually, how does this poetry that you live with, basically in another medium, how does that translate into filmmaking?
It's funny because it's hard, to say like I'm a poet, but I released to say the book after my first book of poems after the film, actually.
Oh, yeah.
But I believe the way I see art, it's that the languages are tools to try to construct something that is aesthetical, both aesthetical and theoretical, conceptual. So it is true that the poems were in the process. Like sometimes we would not use an image as a reference, but a poem. An actor or actress would read a poem before going inside the scene.
Oh, wow.
And the photographer too, and we could get the atmosphere we want by a poem and not necessarily by an image.
I find this fascinating because, when we talk to different directors, some of them, it's with music, they make their team listen to a specific song and say like, this is the mood of the song, of the scene you're going to have to shoot at right after. But in your case, a poem, I love it actually. How does it resonate with the actors and with the team, with the DOP, and fascinating. So yeah, both practices actually can become one in this. You're the first one actually who tells me that, so I'm really I'm quite surprised by this. And the film starts quite gently and slowly. You know, we see the daily life of a family. I actually love the ritual of the three sisters dining at their parents' house, you know, every Sunday, because I kind of had like the same habit with my own parents. So I, you know, recognize myself in this ritual. What's the importance of those rituals in the daily life for you in this film? And this specific family, who are they actually, the members of this family to you?
I believe the family, the concept of family is something very, it's a key point of our society. I mean, in Brazil, at least a Catholic tradition society. So, but at the same time that we can talk about family and our feelings about family and go into our own families that we decide to construct, to make or not, there's something that is, I find mysterious, because there's a point that we cannot easily say what is structure, political structure, and what is a feeling. So there's a difficult to define something in the family that that fascinates me, and at the same time I believe it's important to see that, to see what we make in our personal lives, because it's political too. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's not that I'm saying these rituals don't matter or they matter. Is more like, let's see them and think about them, and as so that we can go to this lunch, but being conscious of what that lunch means. And if your father sits in some chair and not the other, and your mother sits in some specifically chair, this means something in a bigger way. Mm-hmm. And you need to know that you're a part of it, at least.
Totally. And there is a small comment actually in your film about, you know, this comet that might destroy the earth. Her boyfriend actually even says, or husband, sometimes it seems as you desire the end of the world to happen. I was fascinated by this, and indeed it does have an impact. How was that a turning point for the main character in your film?
I believe that Laura, and actually the both of them, are always in this talking to this edge. They're like, she's like stepping on the limits, but very carefully until she decides to go, because she sees that it's not working to walk so gently on the edges. But this imminent tragedy, I believe it's already their present, the material, the concrete presence of them. So she's like always invocating the end, and he's like, please don't go there in some way. And I believe and this is something that I believe has in the whole film, that is we relate to what we see and we experiment in society, or what we see in the newspapers or someone talking in the metro, and we portray that in some way and appropriate this to our lives, giving that a meaning that it's part of our narrative. So these people that are around us are also can be transformed into characters of our own history. So this imminent end of the world that we are always living since we are born, and since our great grandfathers and mothers were born, this idea of the end of the world, I don't know, maybe could be another possibility for her.
For another life, yes, absolutely. And the idea of escaping, trying to find something else, and with the whole story that unfolds afterwards, you know, and the the whole party in Argentina, where the story switches to then her husband, who has to deal with, you know, the body, the consulate, and everything. Where does this story comes from originally?
I found very hard to answer this all the time because it comes from so many places. I don't know. I can I can always answer from this idea place, like this. I really wanted to think about these limits of how can we right now in our society be ourselves, like as have our identities and still being society, like being social life, having relationships. How can we construct while we are deconstructing our concept? And so these limits, and also this what I call traditional class media way of not facing the problems, or not facing their parts, that by the moment I'd start the film, I was, I believe, into seeing it happens to Brazil, and then just go really way quicker than I thought. But in another way, I can tell you that I really wanted also to think about the relationship, to talk about the relationship, the possibilities of one. And the first scene that came to my head was the last scene.
Oh yeah.
So,
Gotcha.
so there's a lot of
So
intuition too in the process. The things come together.
This is, you know what, this is really interesting. You tell me that the first image you had in your head was actually the last one, which is so strong, you know, with the burning house and with the sounds of the birds, I'm assuming that is, and with her body laying on a bench. This image still lives with me at this moment. So way to make an impression. And it's interesting because yes, you know, what started the whole process with this ending. And your film also, its structure, you know, you have these chapters that are in reverse order, basically. So, you know, 3, Laura's body, 2, everything will be all right, and so on. Does this has anything to do with the fact that you started with the end in your head, or not at all?
Maybe. I never thought about it, but maybe. You know, only... This is what I say. It's sometimes it's hard to organize in a linear way to talk about how was make the film, but I know it's important us to think. But the idea of changing to reverse the chapters only came to me in editing, because I was like, and maybe there's something with what you're saying, because it's I was like understanding that the film could not be about just to the suffering of this man. Was not about that I was talking about. Not saying that it is not important, but there was not what. So I understood that maybe the end is the beginning, and the potential beginning. And so that this relief, tragical relief in some way, or I'm not saying that dying is relief, not that, just like the consciousness of knowing maybe could make us to take part of our lives in a more even interesting way to ourselves. And so I understood that it was more like, once we know what we do with all those things that we know, and maybe this is a key to the last scene. I don't know.
This is an interesting way to put it actually. But yeah, as I said, this was, for me, this was a really strong moment. And there was another one which I really liked, when Israel actually reads out the letter that you know, his wife wrote to him and their son, but you know, she never gave them the letter. So, but then he discovers it, and that is a beautiful and poignant moment, and I think it makes the character even more complex and full. So I really like this moment as well. And there is a moment which you know, when Israel arrives into Argentina, you know, I'm not sure like if he's like on a bike or whatever, but he seems completely lost in the middle of the streets, and there's a camera filming in, only his face, and we only hear like the ridiculously complicated process to bring back the body of his wife in voiceover. It's tragic, really, but comedic at the same time somehow, because it's so ridiculously complicated, basically. Was this contrast something you wanted to explore, or what did you want to show at this precise moment with this sequence?
I believe that in the contrast,
Yeah.
the contraries is that maybe where we can understand things that we had not understand yet, because if you feel like comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
or you have an idea and you get comfortable with that, maybe you should like not get so how to say this, not to rely so much on that. That's a clue that maybe you need to to deconstruct this, because yes, also the scenes of the comet has something like some humor on it,
Mm-hmm.
because it's so absurd. It's so obviously, if we stop to look, it's so absurd the way we are like holding to the constructor of our structure,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just absurd, and so yes, it was. I wanted to look to this absurdity or to show it, because the scene is in São Paulo, and this guy is there, and all he has is being occupied by this bureaucratic, also tradition. It's something that at some point a country brings to another country, and it starts to be the way of getting in contact with the death of this woman. So that I believe absurd is a word that I like, because it brings the humor, the comedy, and the tragedy together. And yeah, and sometimes I believe when you displace yourself and you see how absurd is one specific or one particular scene,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you can look for everything you saw until there and think, but maybe this is too absurd, like this breakfast, this birthday that is not it's a birthday for a kid, but the kid is not liking it.
Yeah.
So why we're making this, and things like that.
Yeah, it's fascinating how the absurd, as you said, because we do live in an absurd world, we can say that, and it's to see the contradictions, to see the contrasts, it's to see how in the tragic you can have comedy as well, and how in comedy you can have some part of tragic sometimes as well, and to question that. I think your film does it in a marvelous way for that. And I really want to talk about this long sequence you have in the bus, where the main character, you know, she encounters all of these strangers, and they tell their lives and their confidence, like there's no filter. Does this come from a personal experience? I feel like it's something like we've all encountered. Like when you meet strangers, sometimes they overshare, and sometimes we do it as well. So how did that sequence came alive for you?
Yes, I mean, as I said, I believe that for me it's very important the experience I have with other people, and how I sometimes I'm in a bar or in a cafe, and I'm hearing the history that someone is telling another table, and that brings another completely comprehension of what I'm living in that moment. So to be alert and to be capable to listen and to see the others, I believe it's important to construct yourself. So once I understood, I understood this film is also about how this old way of represent women was also absurd, or not more how to say, not fitable, or we're not saying anything to me anymore. How could we think our possibilities, or how we can portray other women and understand that in some way identity of a woman is also the other woman, and how can we point to different women in movement in the bus, and not defining themselves into only one thing. All of them are talking about their histories, and actually the actress helped me with the monologues. We worked together, so all the monologues has something to their own lives of each actress, or about their moms. Isabel Zua tells a true story about her grandmother. Actually, her name is Zua, as she says, and Barbara too. How could we say something about us that is more like us? All these mixed things. I mean, even Laura, she's a mother, but she's not only a mother, and she's not only a wife. She's something that she doesn't even know what she is, and she doesn't need to define in the film, so we can see her and feel more comfortable that we know what she is. Mm-hmm. So I believe this, and that's why I wanted this women to come as documentary, let's say, because the classic way of filming documentary. And to say this fiction that we are constructing about this woman is very important, and it says what we need to hear frontally to get in contact with this film.
Mm-hmm. And this is a very strong scene once again, actually, visually, and also with the comments. And I think your film comes together in a great way. And I wanted to thank you to have shared it with us, actually. It's a beautiful and fascinating discovery. So Clara Maria Escobar, thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for the conversation.
That's it. We could have gone like for so long, but I hope actually with the viewers at home, or we're able to discover this film, and perhaps it's going to answer a few of the questions. I hope.